If a country's economic downturn lasts longer than 2 or 3 months, it is considered a recession. Since its previous recession in the late 2000s, the United Kingdom is now experiencing a serious economic challenge. The Bank of England has warned the public that the economy will shrink and the recession will last longer this time. From July to September, the GDP fell by 0.2%. The pound is in tatters and interest rates are skyrocketing. Inflation is out of control. The UK is in this predicament as a result of political uncertainty and some poor judgments. In this video, we will talk about why the UK's economy collapse will trigger the worldwide recession. Hello, and welcome to our YouTube channel. Before we begin the video, don't forget to press the like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. The epidemic has inflicted an unprecedented economic setback. According to the Office of National Statistics, the GDP plummeted by 19.4% during the first national lockdown, which lasted from April to June 2020. Furthermore, the government's preventative measures, such as travel restrictions and the closure of hotels and parks, led to the jobless rate rising from 3.8% in 2019 to 5.2% in 2020, while household expenditure decreased by 20% during the lockdown. The Ukraine-Russia conflict has been the most significant event this year, affecting not just the UK economy, but also the major economies. Russian gas cuts have been such a disaster for the barely surviving economy that inflation has reached a 40-year high of 9.9%. Gas and electricity bills have increased by 100% despite the capping, and the pound has become one of the worst performing currencies, with its value falling 24% against the dollar. According to National Energy Action, 4.5 million families were in fuel poverty in October last year, but currently, an estimated 6.7 million households are in fuel poverty. Fuel price increases will contribute to higher inflation and fewer investments as the pound's value fluctuates. Political insecurity has exacerbated the already weak economy, since investors are unable to invest in a market with such insecurity and constant changes in state policy on several subjects, most notably interest rates. Many prime ministers have resigned or been forced to resign as a result of their economic policies after Brexit. David Cameron, who initiated the Brexit debate, was in favor of the UK remaining in a reformed Europe and actively campaigned for it. But when 52% of voters chose Brexit over 48%, he resigned from his post as Prime Minister. He received a lot of flack for launching this never-ending discussion. He was followed by Theresa May, who came forward with her plans for a Brexit agreement to get her party's support. However, Parliament rejected her Brexit proposal 3 times, forcing her to quit under enormous pressure. Boris Johnson took over the government and implemented Brexit, but his measures handling the COVID epidemic were condemned since the economy had reached a new low and inflation had reached a record high. He was accused of mishandling the epidemic and was forced to retire, followed by Liz Truss, who lasted just 50 days. The bond rate has risen by 300% from 1% to 4.11% in September, owing to a mismatch in demand and supply in the bond market, as well as currency devaluation, rendering the UK bond market worthless to investors. Tax cuts are predicted to lower income by $445 billion by 2026. The pound's fall, along with the volatility of bond rates, would lock the British economy in a vicious cycle, leading to a property and banking catastrophe. Assume that the US economy can endure more monetary tightening. How about the rest of the world? Changes in the Fed's position may cause a flight of capital to the United States and away from riskier economies. Many emerging market nations will be forced to choose between boosting interest rates to prevent outflows and keeping them low to support domestic growth. Bloomberg Economics' Ziad Daoud has identified 5 countries that are particularly sensitive to increasing U.S. interest rates: Brazil, Egypt, Argentina, South Africa, and Turkey, collectively known as the Beasts. However, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's unusual strategy of managing inflation by decreasing rates puts Turkey in a league of its own. Overall, emerging market policy rates are likely to rise, but Bloomberg Economics predicts that these countries, excluding China, will expand by 4.8% in 2022. This is about 2 percentage points lower than in 2021, although it is still much higher than pre-COVID levels. The main reason the world may be able to ignore the effect of Fed tightening is that the ECB and Bank of Japan are committed to maintaining interest rates at zero for the time being. As a result, there is still a lot of cheap money floating around the world, looking for a place to call home. This helps to explain why long-term interest rates, as measured by the yield on 10-year U.S. Treasury bonds, haven't responded much to the Fed's intentions to boost short-term rates. Another difference is that the People's Bank of China will be traveling in the opposite direction of the Fed for the first time in history. This is a significant thing, the monetary equivalent of China's top diplomat, Yang Jiechi, telling U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken where he could store his human rights lectures at their tumultuous first meeting in Alaska in March. By relaxing policy to help an economy suffering from the impacts of a property market crackdown while the Fed tightens, the PBOC will be declaring its own independence from the U.S. This year's wild cards for Europe will be energy prices and politics. Gas and energy costs have reached all-time highs as a result of French nuclear shutdowns and limited Russian natural gas supplies. Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi has suggested that governments must take measures to safeguard consumers, but governments that are already deeply in debt may be loath to lend out again. In France, the energy crisis and the possibility of the sixth wave of COVID will create the background for a presidential election in which, barring a last-minute shock, Emmanuel Macron will likely retain power. Following the stunning announcement in December that Draghi may run for president, abandoning the more hands-on post of prime minister to someone else, Italy's future seems less secure. The voting period starts on January 24. Italy is still seen as the country most likely to spark the next European financial crisis, and none of Draghi's possible successors have Draghi's prominence or the trust of other European politicians and foreign investors. Let us return to the United States, which, for better or worse, dominates any discussion of the global recovery's direction, since it accounts for about 1/4 of global production. Investors anticipate just 3 rate rises in the United States in 2022. According to Bloomberg Economics, the Fed's newest predictions for unemployment and core inflation are consistent with 6 rate rises. Even yet, the primary U.S. policy rate would hardly be over 1% by year's end, significantly below inflation and the pre-COVID level. It would be remarkable if such rises were enough to slow an economy that began the year with strong momentum, with or without President Joe Biden's Build Back Better spending. Therefore, the most pressing concern is not whether Fed Chair Jerome Powell and the company will have done too much by the end of the year, but whether they will have done enough. A recession appears to be unavoidable for the British economy, with the situation worsening by the day. Market chaos, warnings from the IMF and the Bank of England, and public pressure, the only 2 options the UK has are backward to take gas supply from Russia, despite their stance on the Ukraine war, to return to the mini-budget and face the challenging conditions for a while, or to rely on the USA to save them from the financial crisis. They must make the best choice possible, not the most popular option. This wraps up today's video. Thanks for watching. And if you like the video, give us big thumbs and subscribe to the channel.